what are the biggest questions you have about this football team? Now that the board is settled, the players are what they are, Jeff, what are you looking to get answered?
How they handle expectations. That's a big one because they've never had it. I mean, last year the expectation was just be mid, and they actually overachieved. They won 9 games. Like this year, with all the talk in the offseason, all the publicity they've been getting nationally, now getting all these players, 8 players through the draft, which a lot of them will play and contribute. My biggest question mark, and then they've made some moves in free agency, which will help them. They brought in veterans, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which will help from premier organizations. They all came from organizations that are in the playoffs, but still, my biggest question mark, it has nothing to do with any players. It's the entire team as a whole and Dan Campbell.
Really?
How do they handle these type of expectations? Because winning your division, being favored in the division, having, 8% of the money on the Lions to win the Super Bowl? Like, this is something that we have not seen in a long time. So a lot of pressure, not just on players, but on the coaching staff as well. That's probably my biggest question. Now, if we're getting to the draft, this is kind of just something I've been thinking about more often than not, specifically with Jahmyr Gibbs. His size does scare me. So the biggest thing I'm looking at with Jahmyr is how often he's utilized, because if he's going to be a hybrid, if he's going to play that role, I mean, even if you bring up Debo, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, they're all taller and bigger. So I'm curious how Jahmyr holds up. That's probably my biggest, if we're talking specifically who they drafted, just seeing Jahmyr Gibbs, I want to see him perform and last in the NFL. But other than that, yeah, it has to be the expectations.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to go the expectations route. I didn't. I want to see. The biggest question I have is, how do they utilize Gibbs and Laporta day one? Because you expect them to be used day one. They're going to have all of camp, OTAs, yada, 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 preseason. How does this offense flow? Because let's all acknowledge something. This is now 1 full year of tape that the NFL has on the Lions offense, what they like to do. And I think maybe that's part of the strategy they had was, hey, you know what, last year we got away with the Jamal Williams and, Craig Reynolds in the backfield and Brock Wright at tight end. We're not going to be able to achieve our goals being that little talented in those specific positions, right? So we need upgrades. Laporta's a massive upgrade. Gibbs, huge upgrade alongside David Montgomery. So my question is going to be, how do you utilize these rookies day one? And then also, how do you roll out the secondary? Tracy Walker is expected to be fully fit come week 1 of the NFL season. So you are going to have an abundance of options in the secondary. Aaron Glenn, to me, that is the question I have. How are you going to use these players? How are you going to rotate them? What does your defensive front look like? How often is Aiden Hutchinson going to be pushed to the inside? We'll see.